Hello everyone and welcome to Camping with Lenny. In this episode, what kind of tent do I use and why? This episode is brought to you by me, Camping with Lenny. Help me create great content by supporting this podcast by buying me a cup of coffee at buymeacoffee.com/campinglenny. Thanks for your support. I have two tents that I use throughout the camping season. Depending on the scenario, depending on what kind of camping I'm doing, it will dictate the tent that I'm planning to use. So let's just go straight into it because everyone wants to know what kind of tent I use. So we'll start with a tent that I've been using for the past year now, and it's actually one of my favorite tents. It's the Gazelle T4 Hub tent. It does sleep 4 people, quote unquote 4 people. It's 94 by 94 inches square, so it's a square looking tent. It's a hub tent, so you guys know what a hub tent is. It's literally a pop-up tent. It has 61 square feet floor space, so it's pretty big. But the biggest thing that I'm kind of hesitant, or not hesitant, but I'm a little questioning. Actually, to be honest with you guys, I question every single tent manufacturer when they say this. The capacity. Theoretically, the capacity of this tent is 4 person. 4 person. If you're skinny, sleeping like a vampire on the floor, yes, you can sleep 4 people. But if you are a normal sized person like me, and you need a little bit more room, theoretically this thing is a 2-person tent. 3 possibly, but 2 for sure, because of the square floor plan, or the square the floor dimension. It's literally 3 max, 2 comfortably, 1 plenty of room. Good thing about this tent, it is a hub tent like I mentioned. It's easy to pop up, it's easy to set up. It's just a pop-up thing. It takes about a minute to set up the whole thing, including installing the fly and the ground sheet. And after you set it up, you just have to stake it. It does have 6 loops that you can attach your ground pegs on, but I only use 4. It's fine with 4. Some hub tents, some hub tents in a strong wind can actually collapse the walls, even including this and the roof as well. So in high winds, you do need to put guidelines and stake the walls, but I haven't done that yet. So far, so good. In a windy scenario, it works perfectly. The benefit of this tent, the Gazelle, is the thickness of the materials. The thickness of the materials actually helped a lot. It is thicker than a normal tent, especially the tent I'm going to mention later on. It's a lot thicker. I have no worries about this thing being punctured or being scratched or damaged pretty easily. I don't see that happening at all. It is pretty rugged. It's the reason why it's very rugged, because of the thicker material. Right, but you are paying for the weight of this thing. This thing is heavy. It's 30 pounds to carry around. So if you're planning to go backcountry with this tent, that's not gonna happen. If you're planning to do car camping with this tent, perfect. It's a perfect tent for car camping because you can literally put it in your truck, put it in your SUV, put it in the roof, and you're good to go. It is 30 pounds, so you do need to lift it up. It is heavy. It is what it is. It is a heavy tent. But me using this tent for the past year now, I'm loving it. I have no issues with this tent. I love using this tent. It works very, very well. The setup is easy. The teardown is easy. Packing it straight to the bag, it's so much easy. The only thing the biggest thing that I'm criticizing about this tent, it's not the weight, it's not the bulkiness of it. It's none of that, because I knew going into it, it's pretty heavy and pretty big. The biggest thing that I'm kind of annoyed about, but I can't really fault it because it is a hub tent, because because of the walls, is the size of the door. They're trying to maximize the size of the door to get in and out, but it is pretty small. A typical tent, you can actually bring 2 people in and out, right? But this one, it's small. If you have big furniture going into this tent, good luck with that. It is small, so just be aware of that going if you're planning to get this tent. It is small doors, but again, like I mentioned, it is understandable because of the how the tent is actually built, because you do have cross braces in each wall, and you do need to fit the tent so the doors where the empty areas are without the cross bars are. This includes the windows as well. To the windows, there's plenty of windows. There's plenty of lights going in there. You do get 2 colors for this one. You can get a green or an orange one. I got the green one because it blends in very well. The orange one, it's bright. If you see it, it's bright. But if you're one of those guys that they want natural sunlight going into this tent, get the orange color one. The green one is a little darker, so it's perfect for the summer, and you can actually sleep in a little bit more. Yeah, that's the tent that I've been using for the past year. I've been loving this tent. I had no issues with this tent, despite the size of the doors and the weight of it. But overall, I'm very, very happy with it. Out of 10, I give it about an 8, because again, there are items there that you can make it better. But it's pretty good tent. Oh, if you guys want to know what my biggest thing is, some tent manufacturer, you can actually get an aftermarket fly, like a tent fly that you can actually extend into an awning. This doesn't have an awning, so if you are planning to find a tent that needs an awning, you do need to move into Gazelle T4 Plus. That will give you an extra awning, an extra room, like an awning for the setup itself. But if you only want the T4, just a straight tent, it will be nice for Gazelle to actually have an aftermarket rain fly. Just extends the fly itself to make it like a not a gazebo but an awning, because that would be nice. Again, it's just an aftermarket thoughts about it. I do have a workaround on it. I do have a tarp that actually goes on top of the tent that I can actually extend it. The only time I use that kind of setup, or I set up the tarp on top of the tent, if it's raining or incredibly sunny. I am planning to go camping soon. One of my camping trips, I'm going to be near the beach. I am planning to bring the T4 with me on this trip. The wife and I are going to try it out for this trip. I am planning to use the tarp to cover the tent as an awning, like an extended awning into the tent, but depending on the area. But right now, that's the plan. So that's the Gazelle T4 hub tent. I do like this tent. I am gonna put the specs of this tent on the description, so you see it. You'll check it there. I'll also put in a link of the website for this one, so you guys can actually physically see the tent. It is, again, it's a pretty cool tent. I also gonna put in the website. I'm gonna put it in my Instagram account when this episode goes up. You can actually go to Instagram itself. The link's in the description as well. That how I set up this tent. It's actually pretty neat. I like this tent. Okay, the next one is this tent. I had this tent for past, I'd say 8 years now. Yeah, about 8 years. I had this tent for a while. This is my go-to tent before the T4. It's been my I used this tent during cold weather camping all the way to hot weather. It's a great tent. It is considered a 3-season tent, but the 3 seasons defined as in late spring, summer, early fall type season. So the tent I have that I've been using for the past 8 years is the REI Kingdom 6 tent. They don't make the Kingdom anymore. They actually discontinued it. They actually renamed it to Base Camp 6, I believe. It's the same setup, same everything. The only difference is it's just how the rain flies gets attached. But overall, the floor plan remains the same. The dimension remains the same. The way you set it up is slightly different, but it's practically the same. So if you are going to REI, check out the Base Camp 6. I think that's the name of it. But anywho, let's go back to this tent. This is this is the biggest tent that I have. Theoretically it holds 6 people, and I can actually say it does fit 6 people. That's how big this thing is. The floor dimension is 10 feet by 8 feet. So it's a very big tent. It's an 83 square foot tent area, floor area. It's a very big tent. You can actually divide this in 2 sections. So when I set up this tent, I always tell people that yeah, I have a tent that is a 2-bedroom. One's a bedroom, the other one's a living area. That's how big this tent is. If I'm planning to do a long trip, let's say a 5-day or an 8-day, or even a 14-day or 2-week trip, I'll be using this tent instead of the Gazelle because it's just incredibly comfortable tent. And setup wise, you do need to have 2 people to set this tent up. I've done this with one, aka me, setting this up, and it's fine. Again, you can set this up by yourself and you're not going to have an issue, but you do need to practice when you set this one up. If you have a big backyard, this is perfect setup. If you don't have a backyard, look for a park and set it up really fast before the cop shows up. It's so big that when people see it, they'll just like, oh, okay, why are you setting up a tent in the middle of a park? Yeah, so it's a very big tent. The benefit of this tent is, like I mentioned, it is considered 3-season, but for me, how I define the 3-season for this particular tent, it is late spring, early fall. Late spring, summer, early fall. There's so much ventilation in this tent, the wind will it's just gonna air out the whole tent pretty easily. There are 2 big doors, one in front and one in the back. There is a vestibule that's one side actually gets a vestibule. It is very roomy. When I use this tent, it becomes a dumping ground for all the wood for when I go camping with my friends and family, because it's big enough that you can actually put all your woods there, and we'll keep it dry. And when you open the vestibule, there's actually 2 sections that you can open it, and you can have full access to it too. And if it does get really, really hot on while camping, if you open the vestibule, the front door and the rear door and all the windows, is just a very cool area to sit on and under the shade itself. The material itself is a lot thinner than the T4. It's incredibly thinner, but it's pretty strong. And it is, let's just say, if you like to sleep in, this is not the tent that you want to have. Because when the light hits the tent, the whole tent glows, because it is a white and orange tent. It just glows like when you hit a light. One time I was camping and the sun came up and my tent was the first one to get hit, and it was so bright inside. I think I ended up just using a t-shirt to just cover my eyes because it was just so bright. But yeah, no, it keeps the tent itself. It's very cool during the summer, during a hot day, and it's very, I don't want to say warm during the cold days, but it is pretty. It keeps the heat out, and it does provide shade. So it's a good tent. The downfall, in my opinion, for this tent, when I bought it for the first time, is the complexity of setting it up. It took a while for me to get used to it, especially if you're planning to go camp. Especially for me, when I decided to buy this tent, I wasn't thinking that I'll be setting this tent by myself. So for the first few years, when I was camping with friends, this is my tent, and when I told everyone that it is a pretty big tent and I haven't set it up, so they just laughed at me when I show up. But anywho, yeah, it is. You do need practice to set this up, and you do need the room. So when I'm normally the first one to be set up, because it is a big tent that everyone set up around me. The only time, again, like I mentioned, since I got my T4, the only time I set this up was last year for my family camping trip. And Yeah, because I had my parents in one room of the tent, and the other room is me. So it is a good, it's a good it's a good tent. It is bulky, it is big, but when you pack this, it's actually a lot smaller than the Gazelle. Like the case that came with this, or the bag that came with this, is actually a backpack. The case, the carrying case of this thing is, like I just mentioned, it's a backpack. It's almost like a 50-liter backpack. That's how big it is. And how they design the pack and how they actually pack this thing into the bag itself is so well engineered that there's a section there. The center section is only for the poles. The second section is the main tent, and the other section is for the fly itself. I actually have enough room there to put a tarp, a typical blue tarp that it's literally a 10 by 8 tarp that I dedicate for this tent, and just put it right beside it, and including extra guidelines, extra spikes, spikes to hold the tent down. And yeah, it works out really, really well. When this tent came out, you do have an option with a way bigger vestibule as an accessory. I didn't get that accessory at all, but here's the thing though. The biggest con in this thing is when you set up the tent and you set up the fly and you tie down up the vestibule to make sure the tent doesn't flap around, especially the rain fly. The back part of the tent actually leans forward. Right, it's severe enough that the whole tent actually gets skewed forward a bit, because depending how tight your fly is when you attach it to the ground. So to go around that, you do need to do a little bit of a hacking. I do put a guideline from the back of the tent down to the ground, just to square it up a bit. Then as soon as I tighten up the fly, everything's squared, right? Yeah, that's the only drawback of this tent. That's the only thing that I had to do a little hack to make it work. But it does work very well. Yeah, it's again, if you are a serious camper, you will definitely have more than 2 tents. You'll definitely have more than 1 tent. One is going to be your go-to one. The other one is going to be your bigger setup for bigger trips. Right, longer trips, because I am planning to do a long trip this year. I haven't planned it yet, but I'm planning it. If I do go to that trip, I'm definitely going to bring my Kingdom 6 instead of my T4. The reason why is the floor plan. It's just big, comfortable. If it does rain or gets hot, at least I can go inside the tent. Not hot, but if it rains constantly, I do have theoretically a living room or a sitting area that I can actually sit down and open the fly a bit to get some cross wind into the tent, across breeze, and it does work. So it's a good little tent. Again, I had it for 8 years now, and I had no issues with it, no rips, nothing. So I'm very happy with it. I do set it up once in a while, once a year, to just air it out to make sure everything's okay. And yeah, it's a great tent. It's stable, and it's been my workhorse for 7 years, for 8 years. So it's a good tent. Again, REI did redesign and updated this tent, so I think they call it Base Camp now. It's the REI Base Camp 6, same floor plan, same everything. It's just how they updated it to a little bit more sturdier. But no, I'm very, very happy with this tent. So those are my tents that I use, that I use, and I'm gonna put the specs on the description of this podcast, of this episode. Also, a link of their website itself, and for the Kingdom 6, I'm gonna put the link. The link's still active in REI, so that's pretty cool. And I will also put the link for the updated version of the Kingdom 6. I believe it's called Base Camp. And yeah, no, those are my 2 tents that I use. last year I used both of them. This year I'm definitely going to be using both of them again. It's going to be based on the use case scenario and depending on the trip I'm taking. So those are my tents. Thank you very much. And if you have any questions, please go to campingwithlenny.com. You can just leave your comments there. Just send me a message, then I'll message you back right after. And then we can go from there. Thanks again, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for listening. If you like what you're hearing, consider supporting this podcast by buying me a cup of coffee. Link in the description. You can also visit campingwithlenny.com. There you can find other episodes and links that can help you on your next camping adventures. Thanks again.